This sample was an important development point for ideas and processes and my theme of identity. It began with exploring different materials and gathering them, and then creating a layered effect like this. It became a very feminine piece of work with the colour palette that I'd chosen, and actually just the way that each of the gathers worked together to create these different layers had a real feminine feel to it. So from here I could develop it on and actually see what that would look like if I translated it into a masculine colour palette with more traditional masculine materials that were more about structure. So that's where it developed into part 5. Now, I developed this piece of work through using the critical analysis model and looked at all the 4 stages and found the perfect place to put this because of the way that it moves. It's got a lot of movement to it, and it is a fairly simple structure, but actually when they're layered together it gives it quite a lot of detail. So I thought that the perfect place for this would be on the arm or shoulder of a mannequin, and looking very simple at it, and that allowed it to accentuate each of the ruffles and the gathers itself, and you could see all the individual materials and colours. And from there, so actually critically reviewing it, which shows where I've met learning outcome 3, I could then look at how I would develop this further. I took it into the garden and actually made the most of the movement and the structure of the ruffles and how they each stand out. Remind me a little bit like a spine, like the bones of a spine, and how I could actually use that effect to weave it through the fence on my garden. So actually weaving it through with the movement that each ruffle allowed meant that it created quite a nice structure, and then I could extend it from there. I could extend out into the ivy, or going back to the mannequin, I could extend it out across my wall as if I was using the space around me. And that's what my research has taught me to do, to not be limited by just one part of a space like the fence or the mannequin, but actually to extend my work out beyond the space behind it, creating different levels. And I think that's what I learned from the sculptures that I saw in London, that actually they were static pieces of work, but having different levels and using different backgrounds and having different perspective made it seem as though the pieces had a lot more energy, they were a lot more alive, there was a lot more movement. And that's what I could do with this piece of work and extend it out, and to not only allow the structure to have the movement, but actually I could create more movement for where I place things and how I put things into a context and how I use them. And that's what I learnt, which started from a very simple idea of gathering, and how I used my reflection and my critical thinking to extend this piece out and further towards part 5.